Good, unusually cloudy morning here in LA, and I'm sure it's different in different places. For those of you joining us today, getting ready to get started here in a few moments. Started with some communication. This is an interesting topic, and to me, it was a little, when I first thought of this, it was a little contrary because we think about the built environment or the building industry is all these hardware pieces and parts, but there is, such a common thread that runs through all of it. It's really about communicating, So anyway, we'll give folks a few more minutes to get logged in, get started. All right, let's kick it off. The core of construction is communication, and BIM, it's the single source of truth. How do we make that happen? We got nearly approaching a million registered users on our platform, and that's a lot of people that are communicating with a lot of other folks. And the difference today is it's done digitally to a large degree. Communication, so I'm saying it's the foundation. It's really the common denominator of everything we do in the built environment. So no matter what it is, we're trying to help someone else understand what needs to be done and how to do it. So let's start off today a little different. I'm gonna kind of jump off without a net here on a little video that you may have seen before. Hang on just a minute while I pause it and pull up the video. We're going to, many of you may have seen or heard this before. We'll kick it off. I got Brian Helms co-hosting with me today to make sure it's all running well. Brian, let me know if the video.
Strange may seem, they give ball players nowadays very peculiar names.
Funny names?
Nicknames, pet names.
Not as funny as my name, Sebastian Dinwiddie.
Oh, yes.
Funnier than that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Now, on the St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellas on the St. Louis team.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Do you know the fellas' names?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The fellow playing first base for St. Louis.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, who is on first?
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who is on first?
Have you got a first baseman on first?
Certainly.
Then who's playing first?
Absolutely.
When you pay off the first baseman every month, who gets the money?
Every dollar of it. And why not? The man's entitled to it.
Who is?
Yes.
So who gets it?
Why shouldn't he? Sometimes his wife comes down and collects it.
Whose wife?
Yes. After all, the man earns it.
Who does?
Absolutely.
Well, all I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's name on first base?
Oh, no. What is on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, don't change the players.
I'm not changing nobody.
Take it easy.
What's the guy's name on first base?
What's the guy's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. We're not talking about him.
How did I get on third base?
You mentioned his name.
If I mention a third baseman's name, who did I say is playing third?
No, who's playing first?
Stay off of first, will you?
Well, what do you want me to do?
Now, what's the guy's name on third base?
Well, what's on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third.
There I go, back on third again.
Well, I can't change their names.
Will you please stay on third base, Mr. Broadhurst?
Please, now, what is it you want to know?
What is the fella's name on third base?
What is the fella's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know. Third base.
All right, it's craziness. I remember seeing this as a little kid. My dad used to watch these guys. Anyway, obviously they were having a real communication problem. Hang on just a minute. Let me flip back to the actual slides here. Ah, all right. So who's on first? Nobody really knows, but as you can see, who is on first in this slide. So throughout the day, a little housekeeping throughout the day's session here, if you would. Okay, if my screen would advance, there we go. There's a chat pane. You can see the visuals here. It's over on your control panel when you logged in. So ask questions in the chat pane, make it interactive. I mean, this is not just about me sharing with you my perspective. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, what you're up against, how you see that these apply to you. And this is also going to be recorded. It's just so we can share it with those that weren't maybe signed up, weren't able to be on, and also be shared with anyone later on that comes to sign up later for it. And it'll be available to you to share with others through an email you'll get probably the next couple of days. So anyway, what do we have here? Well, we got a big blue ball, and that blue ball might be any specific instance, might be any specific topic, might be any specific, it might be about a building. You know, it could be about a baseball game. It could be about who the players are. And every time we have something like that, we're going to have, we have people's perspective. There's going to be a perspective looking at it from one direction, and they may see this round, perfectly round sphere as a slightly rounded square from one perspective. The next person that's looking at the exact same item, device, building, whatever it is, has a whole different perspective. They might see a green square in their way. We're all conditioned. You know, the designer has had long discussions maybe with an owner on the requirements, so he knows what he's trying to communicate. But what the builder or what the guy that's doing the actual purchasing, procurement, or tendering of everything that goes into that facility, he might read it differently in today's situation with using the tools that we've been using in the past in this industry. So it's a knowledge gap is what we have. So how do we got a knowledge gap between, a lot of times it's building product manufacturers and then the architects, engineers, and designers. The manufacturers know their product intimately. They know everything about that. I was just on a call with one of our clients, you know, Canon. They make these projectors, and they may know everything about how that device can be mounted, you know, what the conditions can be. There's no question about it. But often, you know, how do we get that communicated to them? The environment that needs to be in, or the mounting positions, can it be upside down, inside out, you know, however, interior, exterior, that those are a knowledge gap. And we end up with the same situation again that we had just in looking at a basic sphere. We have different people that have different perspectives because their job is impacting the exact same facility differently. So, you know, again, Mariana, another co-host of mine, brought this in, and this is pretty classic, and this even happens to me sometimes daily. So how can we communicate better? How do we close that gap, that knowledge gap, where that, back to the example I just used with the Canon video projector, make sure that everybody that's going to be using that in a facility sees it the same way, understands the capabilities as intimately as the manufacturer, and is able to have it work and function as it was intended and meets those. So for me, what I came up with a while back is communication is the foundation of the building industry. Each of the people along the bottom are actors, we call it often. So initially we have an owner who has a set of building requirements. And I'm going to go to how we used to do it. The owner kind of tells an architect, hey, this is what I need. I need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I need a hotel that has 248 rooms and 15 stories. And so the architect blends that with the code requirements and the needs and creates a design. And in the past, we used drawings. and a spec book as a communication tool. But everybody kind of referred to that. And so back then, the drawing was our kind of our single source of truth, even though it would often say, don't refer to the drawings, refer to the spec book. So the engineer referred to the drawing and creating some of the specifications for the structural aspects, for the HVAC and mechanical engineer for those aspects, and incorporated that again into that drawing, or created another drawing similar to this one, but it had just the mechanical or structural on it. That complete set of documents then was thrown over the fence, so to speak, to procurement or tendering. So somebody had to figure out, okay, how many pieces and parts of each of these systems do I need to buy? And oh, hey, wait a minute, let me just add 10 or 15% because, someone will get run over by the truck on the site, or they'll drop some, or they'll get damaged. And so it was called estimating. And then that whole set of documents, coupled with what the procurement officer had come up with, would be sent to the field for fabrication and assembly, or construction as we call it. And once that was done, he would mark up that drawing, again, single source of truth, but we got 12 single sources of truth, and pass it off to the owner. And every step of this way, every single step, it was all about interpretation. There are volumes, there are courses, there are university semesters spent on reading blueprints, interpreting construction drawings. My submission is that anytime we have to interpret something, it's an opportunity for error. Today, however, we got totally different ways to communicate than paper-based. And there's a study done a while back that really showed where the construction industry is, that it's second from the bottom only with agriculture in terms of leveraging technology for business systems. And one of the big reasons is that we still think in paper-based terms. We still utilize paper-based processes, but we're shuffling them with what we think is technology. So we're creating a PDF of a drawing and emailing it to the team. Even though, again, we got 17 single sources of truth, because every time that drawing is emailed off, it's disconnected. There's no more connected, unbroken communication flow. So today we have tools that we can communicate in ways we never could before, instantly, in a shared environment. And the core of that is data. In data we trust. I used to say, in God we trust, or in the higher power we trust, and all of those require data. So it's kind of along the same lines. It's in data, and actually, if any of you were on my webinar last couple weeks ago, that was a lot about our digital replicas. There were some slides, and I pointed out, and data is only ones or zeros. It's black or white. It's yes or no, red or green, go or stop. There's no interpretation when it comes to data. So in today's world, what we have the capability of is the owner now can submit his requirements, his building requirements, what he needs, to a single collaborative information store out in the cloud. I'm not going to call it a database because it's a lot more than that. It can be. So it doesn't really matter what structure it's in. The whole point is it's a single collaborative platform for all the actors to engage in and embellish that communication, or that collaboration storehouse throughout the life cycle of a facility. So you're all working on the same content real time. So designing, it is about communication, and early day sketches, they might do some quick rough drafts out just in brainstorming thinking, but today then that is converted into a model. That model, then it needs to be stored in that same information store that the original requirements were in, because this model we can run checks against that data store of requirements to make sure it's in compliance. That's the way we are able to do it today. Additionally, as that design is developed, an owner, say a hotel owner, a school board, can actually use tools that we have, again, communicate to them what the design was, or even a high-end home. We can communicate that model that designer just created in an immersive way. And this is not just telling, This is actually letting them experience it. And again, it's that same data model, that same storehouse of information that's being accessed with these new tools. Beyond that, the engineer now is accessing that previous model, and he's running or she's running simulations with digital computational tools instead of them using in the old days, and it's a cliche, but their slide rules or hand calculators to run computations on the airflow and the heat gain of all the devices in that room. They're actually using technology called computational fluid dynamics to run not just airflows to make sure that an HVAC system will virtually perform in a simulation, but they're able to also even audit that after the fact to make sure that that is in fact it's performing to the levels that it was designed to perform. So again, same collaborative platform. There are roles for different actors with different rights. And what are they using? They're actually using the data that's connected to real content. So in the early days of CAD and then even 3D, we started developing these what we called 3D objects or BIM objects. And the difference in the transition from what they were in the early days is largely they were just about the visual aspects and dropping them into even if it's a 3D model, a lot of times that model is flattened out into our old drawing thinkings. And we'd have to look at the floor plan, and then we have to go look at elevations of that same room in the floor plan to see if it, what it actually looked like visually from a walking perspective as opposed to a bird's eye perspective. And so you had to match these all up. Again, interpretation. It wasn't a real three-dimensional model. Now, not only do we have now the three-dimensional content as you see in the current screen, but you also have the properties. So that dishwasher, when that's dropped into a commercial kitchen and that is running, we can now know what the heat gain is in that room. We know what the power consumption is going to be. How much water is it using? And these are all become part of those visual and the simulated and virtualized systems that are designed. So we can have a building that performs well and doesn't have to be retrofitted, up the size or the airflow of the air conditioning in that kitchen, because now that we've got this dishwasher in there, we're seeing that it added so much heat to the room, the AC unit's not cooling it effectively. That's what we want to eliminate. So how do we get this found? So there's a concept called a zero moment of truth. And now, how many of you are familiar with this concept of zero moment of truth? Actually, I have a quick poll here to find out. Let's see how many of you have heard. So either you've heard of it or you haven't, or maybe you heard of it but you're not sure what it is. Let's see if so we got. Seems like many people have not. So close enough. I'm here to explain somewhat, but I will tell you that it's really, as far as I can determine, through a colleague of mine, Mariana, she shared this with me a while back. This was largely developed by Google. And the whole point of the zero moment of truth is, now that we've got this, this building and we've got those requirements and it's being engineered, we need to find products or content that are going to work in that building to meet those performance standards and performance specs. And what we're going to do is we're probably going to go out and search the web, or we're going to search a platform like BIM Object to find that content that's going to meet those requirements for us to download it and put it in that model. And then that becomes part of that facility from then forward. So the zero moment of truth, according to Google, is there's 3 to 7 seconds that when a search is first done for commercial air conditioning or HVAC system on the BIM Object platform, that they get a results. And you want to be part of that result set. You want to be part of what got found. So again, today, communication. You need to be able to communicate immediately to the user base or the people that are going to be buying, better yet than just using your products as a building product manufacturer. So BIM Object, we actually have the world's largest catalog for BIM content. As I said in the start, we're over 930,000 professional registered users, and these are not just architects and engineers, and they're also construction managers, facility managers, purchasing managers, that are all engaged in this e-commerce, if you will, or digital commerce of the building industry and the built environment. We've achieved pretty amazing growth because as the industry is adopting this globally, many of our even designs, a lot of times I have a North American manufacturer questioning me, Steve, I see that, we've got this engineering firm in Budapest or Istanbul that has downloaded, our check valves. We don't sell to those locations. And I say, that's fine, but realize that some of the largest design firms here actually have remote specialty design groups that are often all over the world. So that particular check valve that got downloaded might be going into, the new LA stadium here that they're building, or it may be going at the University of Wisconsin in a new dorm. But there's engineers and designers and construction managers that are outside of the walls of where it'll actually be sold and installed that are looking for your content. They need that zero moment of truth to find it. So we often call that the single source of truth, which brings up our second poll. I want to see who, if anyone, has heard of single source of truth. Yes, no, or hey, I heard about it, but I have really no idea what it means. So, okay, looks like we're having folks that have not heard of it, and that's fine. We'll close that poll out. And with that, let's go to a little more. So the single source of truth for us is this collaborative platform. One solution we have is the BIM Object Hercules platform. You're able to bring the model in, and anybody in the whole ecosystem of that particular facility can access this content based on the rights that the owner of the collaboration store has set up for them. And some people might be able to modify it. Some people might just be able to read it, but you're able to, in the procurement and tendering, we used to call this estimating. I like to call it cost definition. Now he can actually do an extraction. This happens to be Excella, one of our partners it's on our platform that creates something similar to CMUs in Europe. Now the tendering officer knows every single item that needs to be purchased to complete this structure, this building, and the part numbers and how many of each item and how they fit together. So we're able to actually interact again with that centralized collaboration store for that as well. We are going to be able to use that same platform for the actual building, for creating it, for constructing it, for assembling it. And in this day and age, a lot of it is, maybe digital fabrication. A lot of it may be off-site fabrication and then brought to the site. More and more, we're getting pieces of this that's just-in-time manufactured, in assemblies directly out of a data model, directly out of a BIM model, right to machines that are in a large timber frame structure or panel frame structure. The instructions are coming right out of that model and being sent to the shop floor to have those assemblies created. So again, they may have just a different view or a different way of seeing it. Same building. Here in this particular shot, it's on our Hercules platform. They're able to expand out and see every piece of part. They can drill into any piece of part and see what brand, make, model, and all the metadata and important aspects of it, and the counts of how many of those are in that particular facility. And ultimately, the whole goal is that we turn that over to the owner. So now, from day one, what the owner started with the requirements, we've all been working in the same storehouse of information, our single source of truth, bringing in content from the BIM Object platform that is incorporated into a model. And then again, that model is used, again, without those that don't need the software platform to actually create the model, they're still able to interact with that same model without having that software even loaded on their machine, just simply through a browser window. Here at BIM Object, we like to say we have the capability of a complete ecosystem. So in that ecosystem, it runs, as I just did through this scenario, through the full building life cycle. And we are able to help you maintain your, the building product manufacturer's content as relevant through that whole process. As well, it's interoperable. So we don't create anything in a proprietary format. We create content and we create a platform to allow interoperability. So people can use, there's a number of great model authoring software systems out there that different places, different disciplines. The mechanical engineer might use a whole different modeling tool set than an architectural designer, which is using a whole different tool set than a structural engineer. But they all are creating the same building in the end, so they should all be working in the same environment to ultimately create that end facility. So essentially, we're creating a digital twin. We're building it first in that collaborative platform, and everyone is working on the same page. They see real time what's happening with that as it evolves. And then it's turned over to the owner at the end. And in order for that to happen, we've seen that the more sophisticated construction managers are really the ones they've always had to make the rubber meet the road. It didn't matter what information they got, they had to put it together, create a building that's going to be compliant with safety codes, with life safety. It's going to need to be compliant with the requirements of the builder. They have to have the number of hotel rooms. Those number of hotel rooms have to be able to fit the size of beds and the number of people, because those are all part of the requirements set. And that's a simplified way of doing it. And again, it's not any one, it's all actors. So, I mean, this Stefan Larsson, our CEO, we're based originally out of Sweden, and with the Legos, I mean, that's a great analogy of everything about Legos. They all fit together. They're different, as you can see in this picture. We have different people doing different things. Some people putting in windows, some people putting up walls, but they all fit together. They lock together, and that has to be the case with every single building product to create one facility. It all has to fit together. So let's figure out how to make that fit together upfront digitally first. Another one of Stefan's revelations, I guess I'd say for Steve here, is he said, BIM objects is the construction industry's equivalent of Spotify. So Spotify is all kinds of music for anyone out there, all different genres. But obviously our platform is not about music, but it's about a cloud service like Spotify. It gives access to all the information in building components all over the world for every actor. So by being not just the geometric or just the properties or just the metadata or just the pricing, it's actually about providing the ways to access that information for every person that's part of that built environment role. So how do we make that all happen? Well, Mariana gave me this image a while back, and it's so true. What we have to do, we got to move quickly, because back to the zero moment of truth, and how do we work within the single source of truth, is we got to move quickly. And quickly doesn't mean that we're rushing and stumbling over things. It means we're moving in a knowledge-based way very effectively, because without that, we're not going to be able to maintain relevancy in this industry. We're not going to be able to maintain our competitiveness, because the information platforms available to us allow us to work off the same page and not have disconnected information exchange systems. So that's what we need to get to. So I encourage you to look, how do you move into this? Consult any one of us with BIM Object. There's a lot of other places, but it's where the world's going. So we're here to help. In closing, a couple of steps. We're going to, any questions that have come in, we'll go over those in just a minute, and look forward to that. But breaking news, not really breaking, but I guess urgent news. Next week, I and others from around the globe with BIM Object, the family of BIM Object, will be gathering in Malmo to celebrate with a number of our customers, and hopefully you, the accomplishments of the past year, and also we have an amazing panel of thought leaders, not panel, but lineup for the first day on October 9th of thought leaders that are sharing their successes in this whole aspect of the built environment, and not just the built environment, but even how the digital economy is changing so much of what we do day in or day out. So you can go to world.bimobject.com and get tickets there. I think there are still a few available. It's in Malmo, Sweden. And beyond that, we'll be at Autodesk University here in Las Vegas in North America, November 13th through the 15th. We will have a very large group of our team, the BIM Object family there, in a very spacious booth, let's say, on the expo floor at Autodesk University. We'll be able to share all the aspects, numerous aspects of our platform with anyone that has anything to do with the built environment. And so we'll have subject matter experts in each piece and part of it. So hope to see you in Las Vegas, as well as maybe next week in Malmo. So anyway, with that, were there, I think Brian might be on with me. Did we have any questions, Brian?
Hi,
Or,
Steve. Yeah, I've been monitoring the chat. Looks like questions that were asked, you already covered them, so there's no other outstanding questions. If anyone has a questions, go ahead and add it here and we'll address it. Otherwise, I guess they can reach out to you, Steve.
yeah, absolutely. Steve.Holzer@bimobject.com. I need to put that on this closing slide. Mariana normally codes with me today. She wasn't able to. She joins me out of Brazil, but had some office work that was going on in terms of little renovations. So thanks, Brian, for stepping in and co-hosting with me. Yeah, you can reach out to us as well. All the attendees will be getting a link if you want to actually share the video of this particular, I call them learning discussions, and share it with others too. So with that, thanks for joining us. We'll have more coming up. I don't have anything next week, and neither does Brian. Brian had done some last week. In coming weeks, watch, because we'll be announcing another series that will probably get in right after AU gets wrapped up in Vegas. We'll be going with a whole complete new series on our learning discussions and broadcasts. So see you then. Thanks for joining.